Well, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back to another review. And, with all the holidays that happened, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy every other celebration. There was quite a few. And we'll jump right into the actual review. When this movie first came out, I remember liking the movie, especially since there's new dinosaurs introduced. And that's kind of what is part of the trademark of the Jurassic Park, or right now it's Jurassic World. They introduced new dinosaur species. And actually, kind of want to touch into the whole dinosaur aspect in just a bit. However, and I've seen this movie a few times already over the course of all these years, but there is something that I haven't recently watched it again. It kind of brings back this idea, or something popped in my head, where this movie felt like it was more of an homage to the Jurassic Park movie, the original one, and it was more in tune of, here it is, as if it were the last movie. That's what I meant to say. It's kind of felt like it was like the final Jurassic Park movie, which technically it is, but it felt like they were trying to kind of pay back to what people would remember of the first movie. They had Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, those are the two paleontologists that came in the first movie. The ones that went through the whole ordeal with the raptors and the T-Rex and all of that. Well, they make an appearance. Dr. Grant more so during the whole movie. Dr. Sattler, kind of. It's not like she's there like the whole movie, or as much as Dr. Grant was, and that's kind of what it feels like today. Like, this was supposed to be the last Jurassic Park movie, and so they were kind of trying to feed on that nostalgia. It's still good. I mean, you still enjoy the movie. It still has the typical elements, except that there's not so much as because usually in the previous two movies, the way it goes is that a disaster happens, you're stuck in an island and full of dinosaurs, but the main predator on our characters are the velociraptors. And this was not the case. And actually, in this movie, it's the new dinosaur species that was introduced that happens to be the predator during the whole film. The raptors do make an appearance. The T-Rex also makes an appearance, but kind of like the main predator, the one that's always in the background, that they're always looking out for, wasn't the raptors this time. Well, kind of going back over now to the whole issues with the word dinosaur. And I don't remember if I made mention of this and when I was reviewing the first movie. Technically speaking, none of these are dinosaurs, because dinosaurs, as such, they existed in an era, they went extinct. However, within this world of Jurassic Park, what happens is that the company, InGen, and then I believe there's a second company which is like their competitor that's trying to get into their trade secrets. They were the way they revived the dinosaurs, quote unquote dinosaurs, is that they mixed the DNA with a frog and with other species, kind of to fill in the gaps, because they could retrieve a portion of the DNA of the original creatures. However, not the whole sequence, not the whole genome was actually retrieved for each of the species. So what ended up happening is that they would fill in the gaps. And so really these are not so much as dinosaurs as much as they are hybrid animals that were genetically engineered. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out. Now, the new species of dinosaurs that was introduced there was actually technically three, although one kind of just makes it only like a brief appearance. Which would be I believe it is called the Amorosaurus. You can really tell which one it is, because it walks on four legs. It has spikes all over the body, kind of like an armor, and then the tail ends like a club. It's thicker at the end, and then it has spikes, and that's supposed to deter the any predator on it, because it is a herbivore, so it's going to be the main meal for any carnivore. The two other species that were introduced were the pterodactyl and the Spinosaurus. The Spinosaurus, just to give you a picture, is more or less the size of T-Rex, if not bigger. And rather than having short arms, it has long arms and a longer snout, as well as what would be a fan shape on its back. And this particular creature is actually pretty fascinating, because in this movie, it chases our characters not only on the ground, but also when they're crossing a river. It can go in the water, which is much different than a T-Rex. So that's just to give you an idea of what was the danger they had this time. Now, in the beginning of the movie, we do have this this kind of like brief happiness where this child is sky gliding along with someone, and they're up in the air having fun, until something happens that they lose contact with the people on the boat, and we are cut off from there. We cut through to Dr. Grant, who is giving a speech. And basically, Dr. Grant is talking about one of the new discoveries. And actually, I should correct myself. We don't go into a speech. This is our first scene with Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler back together. And when I mean back together, it's more like he's visiting her and her family, because she is married, she has children. And it looks like he visits them often, because even the children know him. And one of them actually refers to him as the dinosaur man. So that's how you know that, they're more than acquainted. Now, one of the things that gets Dr. Grant very excited is that they have discovered that the raptors actually have, or might have, like this specialized structure in their skulls that allows them to resonate their voices or their roars. So it allows them to have different pitches, which also allows them to communicate with each other. And that could be the explanation to how they're able to hunt in groups and talk to each other in order to attack a common predator, or to organize themselves to either protect the eggs or something like that. It ends up being more like a foreshadowing, for sure. But I find that fascinating, because if we go back to the speech where Dr. Grant says that, and the speech is more of a talk that he's giving at a university where he's teaching and has his research, and he's giving more of a conference, not so much a speech. And one of the things that he says at the end is that if the dinosaurs had not gone extinct, the raptors would have probably been the dominant species, the ones that ruled over the earth. And this is kind of funny, because if we looked at the structure, or what he is talking about this structure that gives a resonance, there's like different pitches and tones to the sounds that they make. It's very similar to how we as humans communicate, because sure, we have our vocal cords, which allows us to have some frequency. But if you've ever had a cold where you feel congested, or maybe you have sinusitis, so you have that congestion over your nose, well, the reason is that we ourselves actually have sinuses, and people have probably heard about it but not really thought why it is. Sinuses are these kind of pockets that get filled with air, And that's what we have inside our skull, or our face, I should say. What this does is that as we talk, the vibrations of the air that we emit through our voice, it goes through those chambers, you could say. It resonates, it vibrates back and forth, and it creates this different, unique sound, which gives us our tone, as in uh, how low our voice is or how high it is, that type of thing. So it's really similar to our own anatomy structure. I don't know who wrote. Well, I'm sure it's in the credits, but I'm not sure who wrote this, but it's not that far off from actual reality, like how we ourselves have evolved to be able to communicate, and what structures we do have in our anatomy. Enough rumbling with that. Let's go on with the story, and that is Dr. Grant gives a speech, or we're at the conference, and this is where he leaves over to the site where his students are working on the fossils that they're digging up and everything. And this is where he meets up with a mysterious and odd gentleman, you could say, who offers to pay him a very generous amount to go with him to Isla Sorna. Now, in case you don't remember, the original Jurassic Park and I believe Jurassic Park 2 is also done there, if I'm not mistaken. They were in Isla Nublar. And Isla Nublar, well, there's basically 3 or 4 islands where in the world, in the universe of the Jurassic series. These are the islands kind of off the coast of Costa Rica, where the companies had their facilities to revive dinosaurs. And so Isla Nublar, we were very familiar with it, but then we have Isla Sorna, and this is where this is taking place. It has a different facility, different species, and apparently, the way that Dr. Grant was pitched is that they wanted a guide for the dinosaurs, for him and his wife. And so we even see where this guy, he hired like who appear to be mercenaries, but we later learned that they're not. But he talks to him over the phone. Are you ready? Can we go already? And oh yes, we're ready and we're good to go. All right, so everybody's off. Dr. Grant, this benefactor, you could say, along with his wife, the mercenaries, and well, Dr. Grant's assistant. And they're there up in the air, but something seems off, because the guy had already told Dr. Grant that they had the permission to fly low enough to see the dinosaurs, but they're not interested in the dinosaurs, because they do see Triceratops, they see Brachiosaurus, Stegosaurus, they do see all these different species. By the way, I'm saying dinosaurs just as a simplification, but like I said, these are technically not dinosaurs. They're more like genetically engineered hybrid animals. At any case, they're not interested in these dinosaurs. And even as Dr. Grant is explaining, oh, this is the leader, this is the pack, they do this, they do that, they aren't really paying attention. In fact, the guy and his wife are kind of looking around out of the plane. And even the mercenaries are also looking. And they're asking each other, do you see anything? Or should we do one lap around and land? So Dr. Grant kind of grows suspicious that something else is going on. That they're not just there as like a tour guide of the area and of the animals. So they do land, and the wife starts screaming loudly for Eric. That is when finally everything all comes together. And so the story is, uh, this benefactor and his wife, they're not actually rich. And in fact, he owns, it's like a hardware store. And the mercenaries are not mercenaries. They were just hired. I mean, they never said that they were mercenaries, but, you know, they want to get paid. So they're like, okay, we'll do it. But the story is that the boy in the beginning of the movie is their son. Short rant. Why would they leave their son to go out alone with another adult, not family, and to an unknown island doing some not so safe stunts, knowing that there could possibly be dinosaurs? I mean, why would you do that? And it's very out of character because the wife is an overbearing mom. Like, you can, like, that's how they picture her to be, like, overbearing and overprotective. But she lets her son travel to such a dangerous place. And okay, you know what? Let's get past that. So the story was that they were divorced. So they sent their child kind of like on a mini vacation, and they didn't hear back for him. They didn't hear back from him, and it's been already 8 weeks. And so they're there on the island to look for him. And the reason that Dr. Grant was there because they thought that they could help him. He could help them navigate the island without knowing that it wasn't that island he was at. He was at a different island. So they thought that he had already been there, and he knew the place, which he didn't because he was at a different island, like I already said. So we fast forward, and they do run into the Spinosaurus. It's a whole chase sequence. They run away. They meet the T-Rex for a bit, and then there's this kind of short battle scene between the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus. I'm not going to spoil who won, but from there, they do run into the Velociraptors, and this is where one of the major plot points happens, because the assistant to Dr. Grant, he actually takes a few eggs without him knowing. And the reason being is that if he goes back with the eggs, then he can sell the Velociraptor eggs and basically fund for about a decade of research there at the university. So they wouldn't have to be asking for funds every single school year. In case you're not that familiar, usually in the major, especially in major universities, professors have to consist I can't talk. At a very regular basis, professors have to publish their work, and they have to have work. And not just that, but they also have to teach and all that. But they also have to ask for funds, and the way you get funds is that you ask the school board, which is, I believe, it is IRB, if I'm not mistaken. But you can also ask funds from benefactors or from other groups and say, hey, fund this research because we are going to do this and that, and this is how it's going to be beneficial in the future. And so the thinking of the assistant was that, okay, we sell the eggs, now we have the money that we don't have to ask so much. We can actually now continue the research without any issues. You can tell already that was a really bad idea. So they run off, they get lost. At some point during the Velociraptor confrontation, Dr. Grant gets lost, and he is saved by somebody. That somebody is Eric, the boy. And he sees how the boy has been surviving. He's been using, smoke grenades to kind of, spread out the dinosaurs who are going into him, kind of like the Velociraptors, so they spread out. He's been feeding off of food cans that he has found, and his shelter has been the inside of a water tank. Well, not water tank, water truck. one of those trucks that have like the long tanks, and he's been living inside. And so he's actually done a pretty good job, because if we take into account, he might be around 12 versus 14, something like that. It's not that bad surviving in an island full of dinosaurs that are ready to eat you at any moment's notice. Well, Dr. Grant speaks to Eric. He tells him, well, your parents are here. They're looking for you. We should meet up with them. And so the following morning, they do. They actually do finally meet up back with the parents, separated by a fence. Of course, the fence, just like in the first movie, except this isn't electrified. And funny enough, they do find like a hole that they can fit through. And this is because as they meet up with the parents, separated by the fence, the Spinosaurus comes up again. And this time it's on the side where Dr. Grant and the child is. Well, a mini chase sequence, because it doesn't last even a minute. And they do conveniently find this hole in the fence, so they're able to escape. Or more or less, because as soon as they get to the other side, the Spinosaurus runs into the fence, breaks it, and so they run into an empty building that's nearby. And in that building, that's when Dr. Grant realizes that his assistant had actually stolen some eggs from the velociraptors, and that's why the velociraptors were so eager to kind of go after them. Well, finally they kind of discuss what they're going to do, and since they're right there next to a river, and there's a boat, well, they decide they're going to climb down and reach that boat. They're more or less on top of a cliff, so they have to climb down. Well, not climb, but they have to make their way down in any case. And the plan is that if they meet up with any of the velociraptors, they're going to give back the eggs, because if the velociraptors find them without the eggs, well, things might not work that well. So, yeah. Have the eggs with you, give them, make peace. Or at least that's kind of like the reasoning. And they do climb down, and they make their way. But as they're making their way down, they get attacked by pterodactyls. Not good. But they do make it down, except one of them dies. They finish on their way down, and they do have another. It's another confrontation, you could say, with Spinosaurus, where the Spinosaurus is not that happy. Not happy. Because they've already escaped quite a few times. So the Spinosaurus gets into the river at night, and they can see the spine going up. Very, very reminiscent of Jaws. When the back fin or dorsal fin, however you want to call it, rises up the water, and you hear the music going dun 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 dun. Okay, so imagine the same thing, but except without the dorsal fin, and it's actually just like a fan, because that's the Spinosaurus's spine. And well, you can see how things ended up. They do manage to escape. They manage to kind of end the Spinosaurus. Of course, they do run again into the velociraptors. They give back the eggs. And, well, during the whole river scene, they were able to contact, before the Spinosaurus, they were able to call Dr. Sattler. Yes. And Dr. Sattler, knowing what was going on, she had called for assistance over at Isla Sorna. So when they finally make it to the coast where the ocean is, conveniently, because that was quite quick acting. If we were realistic, it would have taken quite a few more days, but they were rescued almost immediately after they arrived to the beach. And from there, well, the movie ends. Now, it might not sound that interesting the way I'm recounting it, and that's kind of like my fault because I'm kind of dry when I'm doing, you know, my tone is very dry and I'm not that exciting to listen to. But the thing is about this is that this movie does bring up a few of the tropes. You know, you have the overarching, you know, you are up in the view in the sky looking at the dinosaurs crossing. You have a new island. You have the new species. You have the the ever-present danger with, well, in this case, it wasn't so much the velociraptors as it was the Spinosaurus, but you do have that ever-present danger. You have, okay, we have this moment of peace, but now we're running for our lives. You have this is what man made, and this is how nature, takes back control. Something I didn't mention, but it is worth mentioning, is that part of what we see in the movie, when they reach this facility, which is very similar to what was there in Isla Nublar, a facility where they were doing the research and where they were genetically engineering the hybrids. When they arrived, you could see these flasks, these huge flasks with kind of like the hybrid dinos with the hybrid animals at different stages. One more resembling as a fetus, one more developed, one that looks like a baby. And so you could kind of tell that, well, Dr. Grant actually says it best, because the guy who is not the millionaire, he said he was a millionaire, but he wasn't. He does make the remark that, oh, this is how you create dinosaurs. And Dr. Grant makes the perfect response saying, no, this is how you play at being God, which is true. I mean, in the movie, not just this movie, but in the other movies, you do have to remind yourself that these are animals that do not exist, that they were created by man for mankind's own entertainment in order to gain a profit. So they were creating life in order for their own amusement. They were creating life as if they were, God. And that's the point of the whole thing. You can do what you want, but nature is going to find its way to balance itself. Nature will always find a way. Well, there's not much to it. I mean, they messed around, and the dinosaurs made their home. They made their home to stay. I will also kind of add, because I've been reading another book, and I will review this book in a short bit, not right now, but another day. Where, if you remember Dragon Thief was kind of like the precursor, where they found the fossils and they're kind of discovering what species there were of dinosaurs. Well, in this new book, it's more in tune with the Jurassic Park series, where they have a facility, they create the dinosaurs. And what's fascinating is that part of what I mean by it's like they're kind of paying their respect with this movie to the first movie and to the franchise is because one of the things that they mention when they find this claw on the ground, and I'm talking about when they arrive in Isla Sorna and they're on the ground. The assistant, he says, oh, is that a baryonyx? Now, we haven't seen a baryonyx in any of the films. And in fact, if you look up what a baryonyx is, there's not much information because it's kind of the very beginning of when dinosaurs were starting to appear. And maybe not the beginning, but they'll say that the baryonyx might have been the precursor to mammals. like in the real world. But funny enough, in the book that I'm reading right now, the baryonyx is kind of the creature that's in that book. Not the T-Rex, not the Spinosaurus. It's a baryonyx. I thought that was kind of interesting. And so it's kind of nice to see how it all fits in together. I'm probably more uh, excited about the movie even now because, right now I'm older and I can see the connections between the movies. Not just like, here's the dinosaur. Wow. Look at all the special effects. Oh, wow. Because when I was a kid, it was basically, oh, look at the dinosaur. Look at the dinosaur. Ooh, the dinosaur's going to eat them. Now that I'm older, I do see that kind of underplot, which Jurassic Park does real well. It doesn't overtly, smear into your face that this is the underlying story. This is what's going on in the background. They leave in the background more story. Yes, you do have your character development. You have your story with the actual characters in the movies, like Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, like John, who was the millionaire at the start of the first movie. But you have all these characters and they have the plots of their own, but the connection between the different movies, the main story that continues, what is happening, what has happened, what's continued to happen, all that's in the background. And if you pay attention, it's exciting. And if you read the books, it just makes everything that much better. So now, I would still say that Jurassic Park, the first movie, is my favorite. But Jurassic Park 2, Jurassic Park 3, they still hold up. I will say that I kind of prefer Jurassic Park 3 than Jurassic Park 2. But, Jurassic Park as a whole, as a trilogy, does hold up still today. When I review the Jurassic World movies, we'll see how they hold up, and if it still remains a Jurassic Park series, you could say, if they still hold a candle to it, or if they might be series of their own. Because if you want to look at a more modern example, Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series, they're two different series. It's the same universe, same world. It's different timelines. But the Fantastic Beasts, although they might have a little bit of, they might have some tidbits that might connect them to the Harry Potter. Or if you've seen Harry Potter, you could say, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that name. But it's not that it's a Harry Potter story. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is a different story. Same thing here. When we go over to the Jurassic World franchise, is it a continuation of Jurassic Park? Or is it a different set of stories of its own, but in the same universe? I don't know. We'll see. At any rate, thank you much for watching, or hearing, listening. I don't know, however you consume this. That's all I have to say for now. I hope you all had a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Because there was Christmas, Happy New Year's, there was Dia de Reyes, and there was a lot of celebrations. But hopefully you are all well. Hopefully you continue to be healthy. Hopefully you're still motivated for all your endeavors, work, school, relationships. At any rate, see you later. Be well. Be kind to those around you. You never know what they're going through. Bye-bye.